This is a wipe transition. It is a visible, dramatic wipe across the screen. For a bit more emphasis, I created solid layers beneath the shape layers, so that my wipe transitions will be a bit more obvious. You don't have to do it with a solid layer below your shapes, but the more of the frame that wipes vertically or horizontally, the more dramatic your wipe will be. It could also work with large shapes wiping each other out of the frame. To create a wipe, I'm going to use the shape layers with a 10-frame overlap, although with no dissolve keyframes on the opacity. However, similar to the dissolve, this overlap will be used as a transitional space between my shape layers. Now I'm going to build my solid layers for emphasis. To create a solid layer, go to Layer, New, Solid. Select a contrasting color from the Color Picker menu. To trim the solid layers to the exact length of the shape layers, use the I and O hotkeys to find the beginning and end of the shape layer. Then select a solid layer and use the bracket trim shortcut. The bracket trim shortcut on a Mac is Option and bracket in or out. On a PC, it's bracket in or out. I created backgrounds for each of my shapes, just to bring out the contrast and make the wipe transition more noticeable. Keep in mind, large shapes can also be used for dramatic wipes. Now I have a shape layer and a background. To unite them and animate them as one layer, I can pre-compose them. A pre-composition creates a single layer out of a group of layers. Select the layers to be included in the pre-composition and Control and click or right-click on the selection. Choose Pre-compose from the menu. Make sure that the Adjust Composition Length to the time span of the selected layers box is checked. Name it. Now I have one layer with a transform menu that controls both my shape layer and my background, my solid layer. To see the individual layers, double-click on the pre-composition layer. This opens a timeline tab where you can still animate individual layer properties within the pre-composition. Your pre-compositions will appear in your project menu. I did the same thing to the other shape layer and solid layer pairs, pre-composing them so that I could animate them together. Dynamic wipes can be horizontal on the x-axis or vertical on the y-axis. For the most dynamic effect, change the direction of your wipes between shots. First, I'm going to separate the x and y dimensions on my position line. Control-click or right-click on the position line in the timeline layer menu. Select Separate Dimensions. This will give me more control over each dimension, each with its own property line where I can add keyframes. Let's do a horizontal or x-axis wipe first. On the outgoing layer, create 2 keyframes over the 10-second overlap on the x position line. Move the second keyframe position all the way over to the right, out of the frame. On the incoming layer, adjust the starting keyframe all the way to the left, out of the frame. Now the incoming layer wipes the outgoing layer horizontally. Let's try it vertically on the y-axis for the next transition. Create keyframes over the overlap on the outgoing and incoming layers. On the end keyframe of the outgoing layer, move the y position up, out of the keyframe. On the beginning keyframe of the incoming layer, move the y position down, out of the frame. Now the incoming layer wipes the outgoing layer vertically. With this outgoing layer, you can see why it's important to have separate x and y dimensions. This way, you can control each dimension, x or y, independently. Let's ease in and out of those keyframes for a movement that feels a little less robotic, more natural, with a bit more personality. Easy ease keyframes ramp up and down in speed. With dramatic actions like this that encompass the whole frame, it is essential to make your keyframes easy ease. Select all of the keyframes by drawing a box selection across all of them. Control or right-click on one of the keyframes, and from the menu, select Easy Ease. Or use Option plus F9 on a Mac, or simply F9 on a PC to make them Easy Ease keyframes.